Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2018-2019 NFL Divisional Round Weekend predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, this for the first week of the postseason, it was a rough one. It was a rough weekend overall in terms of how the wildcard weekend went. When 1-3 straight up, all three games were decided by all three losses were decided by 6 points or less. Two of them were decided by 2 points or less. So really rough start to the postseason for me. But I do want to congratulate all the teams that won: the Colts, the Cowboys, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Philadelphia Eagles for moving on to the divisional round, and I am excited to finally try to be able to rebound from this horrendous first week of the postseason in terms of my predictions. And now overall for the year, I'm 160, 98, and 2 straight up, so I dropped about 6 thousandths of a point, so now I'm at 62% even. I'm probably going to try to hopefully stay around that range, about 62, 62.5% for the rest of the postseason. There's only 7 more games to go. Hopefully, I can get a perfect 7-0. Just real quickly going over the games: Indianapolis and Houston. What a fantastic job by the Indianapolis Colts all the way around. It really took the first drive of the game where T.Y. Hilton and Eric Ebron basically just threw the ball and ran the ball, or threw the ball, just those two guys, Luck Hilton for 65 yards, 3 receptions, and then Eric Ebron for the touchdown. And right from that moment, through that entire first half, they were able to basically win the game. At that point, I do want to congratulate Marlon Mack. He had a 100-plus yard game as a Colts rusher, one of the very few times a Colts running back, especially, has been able to do that, have that kind of stat line in a while. So, congratulations to him. But yeah, I looked at that Colts team and said, bravo. He had the franchise record for most yards in a playoff game. He had, he ran for the most yards in a playoff game, 148 yards, which is tremendously impressive going up against that Houston defensive line with Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless, J.J. Watt, Christian Covington, Brandon Dunn, like all those guys up and down. That is incredibly impressive for them to dominate the ball like that. Also for the Texans, this is a pretty embarrassing performance, if I do say so myself. And if you are Houston, you're kind of at the point of no return, I feel like, because Indy is only going to get better. Indy is only going to get better. They're going to be able to control games more often. They're going to control, they have 9 draft picks in the upcoming draft. Andrew Luck is fully healthy. They have the best offensive line in that division. It's incredibly young, and they have $100 million in cap space. This team can improve, and they can go on. I'm incredibly serious here. A Peyton Manning type run once again. The Peyton Manning run of the AFC South basically belonging to the Colts. I could see, depending on what they get drafted, depending on what they get defensively, what pieces they have, this is the Colts division to lose, I think, for a very long time, especially after this performance. Lamar Miller was pretty pedestrian, 5 rushes for 18 yards. Deshaun Watson, he couldn't really do anything. The offensive line was just, again, it was the worst in the league. He got sacked 62 times in the regular season. He got sacked a few more times. He threw a horrible fourth down interception. The first time in his career he had thrown an interception on 4th down. And they just looked completely lost. DeAndre Hopkins was playing with a shoulder sprain. Vincent Smith, he missed on a deep bomb early. Ryan Griffin, Thomas Akins, their tight end there. Jordan Thomas really couldn't do anything. And for the Texans, for Bill O'Brien, this is kind of the norm. They've been in that 4:30 slot on Saturday afternoon 3 of the last 4 years. 30-0 shutout. They beat up Connor Cook in a game that really is not going to count for anything, and they lost to the Colts 21-7 in a decisive way. For Bill O'Brien next year, he has to win a playoff game because he can't go backward. Because I didn't think Bill O'Brien deserved a 5-year extension from the Texans in the first place, because he's getting to the point of where a lot of teams are, or a lot of teams hate to be in, where Pittsburgh was getting into if they made the playoffs again this year, of where people are going to start stopping to care what the Houston Texans do in the regular season. They're going to stop caring because making the playoffs for them, it could be great. It's Houston. They're still a young franchise, the youngest in the league. It's great to make the playoffs. But if you can't win games or look competitive or show any bright side or future, what are you doing there? Because honestly, I'm telling you right now, I am not caring this year about the Houston Texans in the postseason if they make it again. I'm not caring about the regular season. I am not caring. Because, you know what? It doesn't matter. They can win 10 games. They can win the division again. They could be a wild card, whatever. They could add talent. Demaryius Thomas could come back or not. I am not caring about this Texan team. I don't think anybody should. They are that bad. And they are that irrelevant in these postseason performances, in my opinion, to move forward from that. Mina, one of my commenters, sorry for your loss there. Hopefully they can improve for you. But from my viewpoint, is watching, I'm not going to really care what the Texans do this offseason or this coming regular season unless it involves a playoff victory. And if the Texans don't make the playoffs, Bill O'Brien deserves to be fired. But there's my point on that. Let's see. Cowboys, Seahawks. Great job by the Dallas Cowboys to shut down the running game of Seattle. Chris Carson was held to about 70 yards rushing, which is way below their average. The Seattle passing game, with those stops and with those stops by the Dallas defense in the running game, really could not get it going very often. They could, Russell Wilson basically, his best throws were basically just him running around doing Russell Wilson type things, where he's just heaving footballs and making perfect passes that I think very few quarterbacks with his skill set could make, and they could not stop Ezekiel Elliott, who had a very impressive game against the Seattle front. He, I believe, ran for 130 yards. Let me see. I'll pull this up here. Let's see. Zeke ran for in the game. Let's see. Zeke ran for 137 yards. There we go. There's the number. Yeah, Zeke ran for 137 yards and was incredibly impressive in that performance. And Dak Prescott made enough plays to win the game. The third and 14 run where he ran for 16 yards and looked like John Elway going to the one with that helicopter dive to the 1 yard line was kind of the key moment of the game. And that was the backbreaker for the Seattle Seahawks, in my opinion. But I do also believe that there were two moments on that last drive, two back-to-back pass interference calls on KJ Wright and Justin Coleman that really saved that drive for the Cowboys. They really could have ended it there. I know people could say, well, you had Janikowski go down of a 57-yard field goal. Honestly, with his age, and do I think that Janikowski was going to make that field goal anyway? No. At his age, at that point, a 57-yard field goal, I know he looks like, a big, brawny guy, and he basically blew out his hamstring, it looked like, when he tried to kick. But I wasn't thinking that was going to be the difference in the game. I also do want to wish my speedy recovery to wide receiver Allen Hurns, who had a nasty, significant ankle injury. That if anybody saw it, it was a little weak. It was a little graphic for people that have weak stomachs. I wish him well, and I hope that he can come back next season in Oxnard and get ready to play for the Cowboys next year. So speedy recovery to that wide receiver. So there's my thoughts about the Dallas game. Our game between the Ravens and Chargers. Look, kudos to the Chargers. I was worried about how a team that was going to get to play Lamar Jackson a second time was going to be able to do, because they would have film, they would have a different game plan, and they would know how, have a better idea of how to stop Lamar, and that's exactly what they did. They did not allow him to get a good running game. The offensive line was dreadful. Lamar got sacked 5 times. He fumbled 3 times in the first 6 minutes of the game. He had another interception, and basically when the running game of the Ravens offense and all the tricks and little gadgets ran out or were figured out, Lamar could not even throw his way into the game. Okay, and I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, maybe you should have put Flacco in. Honestly, with how bad we were after that first drive, I would have put Flacco in there. Because here's the thing. Do I think Joe Flacco would have won the Ravens a game? No, I do not. I do not think he would have won us the game. But it would have been something different. He would have better velocity, to make throws. He would have more accurate throws at this point. And I know, other people would say, well, look at Joe Flacco, his first playoff game. Or 2009, he won a playoff game completing 4 of 10 passes for 34 yards. Yes, but he also ran for 270 yards, and that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago, and Joe Flacco, at least in the postseason, over time, has been able to put up consistent games that, to be efficient or to be a reason why we don't lose and to manage the game well. Lamar was not managing the game at all, and anybody that wants to brag about those 2 touchdowns in the last 6 minutes, the Chargers were playing off. That was garbage time. That was just, they didn't care. And yeah, that would have been one of the worst choke jobs in Chargers history. That would have happened. But of course, Melvin Ingram runs right up, he fumbles, and number 42 of the Chargers, Mr. Davis, I forget his first name, is able to recover the ball. But that's what I would have done. But kudos to the Chargers. They played 58 of the 59 snaps with 7 defensive backs, something very rare. And I think for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson is the future of the team, but he needs to incredibly, improve his, throwing or improve his throwing enough that he can be a respectable thrower with his running in order to get this team, to that next level and to that next step. But after that performance, I'm not as sold because it wasn't like Deshaun Watson against the Colts where, he looked just as bad. He had one of his worst games. He probably had his worst game as a professional. But at least Deshaun Watson made some throws, made some decisions that I could see, as an improvement, or it's kind of like he could deal with the pressure better than Lamar did in their first playoff game. So, but kudos to the Chargers. Good luck against the Pats. And finally, the Eagles-Bears game. What a defensive battle this was. And Cody Parkey, what a job by him to mess up that kick. Even though I commend Doug Peterson for calling the timeout because that's exactly what I would have done. I was not sold on Cody Parkey, and actually out of all the kickers in the playoffs, that'd be the one guy I would want to ice. Maybe him and Brett Maher, because they're both young kickers, and Brett Maher actually has a weird history of missing kicks, and Cody Parkey actually has hit the upright 4 times in Soldier Field. And I know now it's like, well, it got partially blocked, and Trayvon Heston, kudos to him. And I've gotten enough to hit the upright. But for Cody Parkey, it's going to be a hard time in Chicago to get back there because that is a game that they should not have lost with how talented that defense is and how efficient Trubisky played. But for Nick Foles, it continues. Nick Foles led a huge drive that he knew the experience and they felt confident making plays, and the Golden Tate trade paid off by him catching that touchdown that won the Eagles the game. So kudos to the Eagles in that regard. All right, so there are my quick thoughts on those games. Time for my picks for this weekend. So in the divisional round, starting with the first game on Saturday, when the number 6 seeded Indianapolis Colts go to the number 1 seeded Kansas City Chiefs, I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Indianapolis Colts. Then the second game, when the Dallas Cowboys, the 4 seeded Dallas Cowboys, travel to the LA Memorial Coliseum to take on the LA Rams, I am going to take the LA Rams to win this game. Then on Sunday, when the 5 seeded Los Angeles Chargers go to the number 2 seeded New England Patriots, I'm going to take the New England Patriots to beat the Los Angeles Chargers. And finally, in the last game, when the 6 seeded Philadelphia Eagles go to the number 1 seeded New Orleans Saints, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, it's time for my thoughts on each game. I'm taking the Chiefs over the Colts here. This is one of those games where I feel like with the Colts, the biggest reason why I am not taking that, or why I'm not considering them more or in this way is that second half against the Houston Texans. After that first half, where offensively they were running the ball effectively and scoring at will and moving the ball well, people seem to forget. The Colts did not score a single point in the second half. The Colts did not score a single point in the second half, and that's what concerns me. I know they are playing the Chiefs defense. I understand that. And the Chiefs defense is the second worst in the NFL, and if they win the Super Bowl, that'll be the worst defense in NFL history to get carried by a team to win the Super Bowl. I understand that. However, I look at the Colts, and if you look at the Chiefs, in their games, this is a game where 21 points is not going to cut it. The lowest amount of points this Chief offense scored was 27, and that was in overtime. They put up 26, and that was against Arizona. So they have put up at least 3+ scores in every single one of their games. And I feel like with that Colts defense, the Colts defense, again, it's improved in the back end. And I feel like, but I feel like Kansas City has more weapons to exploit the back end of Indianapolis compared to Indianapolis against Kansas City. Because, you do have T.Y. Hilton who can run through the Chiefs secondary. But besides that, you have Ebron. Ebron and Kelsey basically cancel each other out. The Colts, by the way, have the worst defense against tight ends in the NFL. So I think that's a mismatch that the Chiefs should use. And I feel like that I don't think Marlon Mack is going to be able to run the ball that I don't think that offensive line that effectively will be able to get through. I think the Chiefs pass rush can make one play that can win them this game. And also, I believe with the Chiefs and Mahomes, I believe that Mahomes, he is not afraid of these kind of moments. This offense is proven dynamic enough to play in these big games. I know he has the Chiefs aura, and Andy Reid does around them, because again, the Chiefs are trying to win. The Chiefs have lost their last 6 home playoff games. They've lost 2 in back-to-back years against the Steelers and Titans. Last year, everybody remembered, they blew a 21-3 lead against Mariota. So, can the Chiefs team lose to Indy? Absolutely. Because honestly, from top to bottom, Indy is a better pure team in all facets of the game: offense, defense, or offensive line, or offense, defense, and special teams. And the Colts defense played much more consistently than the Chiefs. The only thing I would argue is that I feel like the Chiefs have a better pass rush with guys like D. Ford Houston and Chris Jones compared to Indy's. But what I saw out of the Colts offense in that second half was enough for me to say that the Chiefs are not going to go a whole second half without scoring the ball. The key thing for the Colts to win this game is for Patrick Mahomes to do what he did against the Seahawks and do what he did against the Chargers. Like in these games, he wants to go for big shots. He wants to make big plays. If you can get him, throw some wild incompletions, or he is throwing, too aggressively, he's going for the jugular and misses those shots and gets them in third and long situations, or he cannot, take those situation advantage of those. He can't make the right play or the more conservative or managing play to move into more manageable situations. That's how the Colts can win this game, along with a turnover. I also believe in Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck has a high turnover rate. So I do believe the Chiefs can get at least one turnover from him. The Texans did, thanks to Brandon Dunn. And that may be the difference in this game. I'm excited to see this game because this game is between the two top quarterbacks in terms of touchdown passes. 89 touchdown passes these two men have thrown. And these are two of the top 5 offenses in the league in basically every single category. Yards per game, points per game, offensive line allowed sacks, running yards. So this is a very loaded offensive style matchup, which I'm excited for. But I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs here because I believe in the home field advantage. I believe that, Patrick Mahomes, this is his moment. This is his moment to prove to everybody that he is different than Alex Smith, that he can lead this Chiefs franchise to higher highs than they have, and the nightmares they've had in the past for Chiefs fans can be kept away. Because if they lose this game, there is a genuine question here. You can look at Andy Reid and say, will he ever win a Super Bowl with the Chiefs? And will he ever be able to show, that he can finally reach that top mountaintop? And this will officially, if he loses, this will officially confirm Andy Reid as the new Marty or as the genuine Marty Schottenheimer of Kansas City all over again. It's going to be a great game. I'm excited. But I'm taking the Chiefs here. More loaded offense. They're at home. I've seen that Colts offense struggle last week. I know they're playing the Chiefs defense, but I don't think the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs can get one turnover or one sack that can be the difference in the game for the Chiefs to be able to score. And I think the Chiefs' running game will be respectable enough that they won't just have to focus on Mahomes throwing long bomb passes. So that's why I like the Chiefs to beat the Colts. The Rams over the Cowboys. This is one where, the Rams are rested. The Rams are going to have Todd Gurley back, who was the second leading rusher in the league. The Rams are, have some confidence built in them, especially defensively after playing the Niners and getting 3 picks on Nick Mullins. 2 of them returned for touchdowns. And I just feel like with the Rams, they are going to try to win their first home playoff game since the 1985 divisional round. The best part was, who they played that game against? The Dallas Cowboys. So the LA Rams, in full circle, 34 years later, have an opportunity to win their first home game as the Los Angeles Rams by playing the Dallas Cowboys. And they won that game, by the way, 20-0 in the divisional round. By playing the Dallas Cowboys at home. I feel like with the Rams defense, the Cowboys have a much better defensive matchup. They have the number 6 ranked total defense. They have been much more consistent defensively against the run. They've shut down great assets. But I feel like with the Rams offensive line, they've done a pretty good job. And I feel like with a fully rested Todd Gurley, he will be able to make holes and cancel out what Zeke can do. And if you told me I had to, put the Dallas Cowboys wide receivers against the LA Rams wide receivers against their secondaries, I will take the LA Rams receivers over the Cowboys corners compared to Dallas's corners against Dallas's receivers against LA's cornerbacks, because I feel like Talib and Peters can hold their own against Cooper and Gallup. Cole Beasley, he really hasn't been that effective, and they just lost Allen Hurns, so now they have their 4th wide receiver down, so somebody has to step up there. And I look at the Rams. I look at this Rams offense and say, look, it's rested, it's confident. Also, you have Wade Phillips there. Wade Phillips is a former Dallas guy. Wade knows Jason. Wade knows what Jason likes to do. And I feel like, again, that is going to be a huge opportunity to have an advantage there. I know it's different with Dak, and he was there with Romo, but still, Wade knows some of these Dallas guys. He knows this, Dallas organization. And he definitely knows Jason's mind, and he knows what he likes to do. I think this game is going to be competitive, and I am surprised that Dallas on the betting line is such a high underdog. I would take that because I feel like the Cowboys can run the ball. They're playing against one of the worst running defenses in the league. It's really been a disappointment in my opinion, especially with guys like Sue, Brockers. Aaron Donald's really been the only standout, even with Ndamukong Suh. They are playing the 23rd ranked rushing defense in terms of yards. So the Cowboys can get their yards on them. And the key thing is, to me, I feel like Todd Gurley will do enough and be able to make enough holes to get through this Dallas defense. Because if they shut down Todd Gurley, as you've seen with the games against the Bears and the Eagles, if Jared Goff has to play a pretty significant pass rush or a pretty good defense, he shrinks pretty mightily. He looked pathetic against the Eagles, and he looked pathetic against the Bears in those back-to-back weeks. And I feel like with the Cowboys, he could end up in that situation. At least what I've seen out of Dak Prescott when he plays a good defense, or you can just look at the Giants game when he doesn't play with Zeke. He has some confidence to make more plays by himself to win this game. But I do see Todd Gurley being able to have an effective game. The Rams will be able to get to Dak Prescott a little bit. And I trust their secondary against the Cowboys receivers versus the Cowboys secondary against the Rams receiver. I trust the Rams secondary more against Dallas's wide receivers compared to the Dallas secondary against the Rams receivers and Cooks and Woods and Reynolds and Higbee and Everett. I think this game is going to be fun. It's going to be a predominantly Dallas crowd. The Cowboys train out in Oxnard, California. And I do feel like, again, the LA Rams don't really have a home field advantage. But I'm going to take the Rams here, trust that. I'm going to trust Todd Gurley to have an effective game. And I think Jared Goff will make one or two more plays with his confidence build up from the Cardinals and Niners game in order to win this game. And C.J. Anderson will be a different type of pace back. And when Todd Gurley needs a break, I think he will be a little bit of an X factor in terms of how the Rams pull this out. So that's why I like the Rams to beat the Cowboys. Next game, the Patriots over the Chargers. This is one where I'm taking the Patriots because they're the Pats. It's a great matchup. You have an 8-0 team outside of the state of California on the road, and the Chargers versus an 8-0 team at home in the Patriots. Phillip Rivers has never beaten Tom Brady. 0-7 in those matchups. I feel like with this game, I know the Chargers have more talent, and I know the Chargers can put a better offensive effort than they did against the Ravens. Phillip Rivers only threw for about 160 yards in the game. They didn't turn the ball. They had one turnover from Virgil Green, but that was it. And they really couldn't run the ball, and there were some significant stops. I do expect Phillip Rivers to air the ball out and have a much more offensive-type game. But you're playing the Pats at home. This is the Pats team that, at home has played much more consistent football. They've had a week to prepare for you. And I feel like, again, you're playing a completely different style, and Lamar's a rookie going against this defense. And he was more a running quarterback. What a culture difference, or what a style difference to go from Lamar Jackson, the youngest quarterback to start a playoff game, to Tom Brady, who I believe now will be the oldest quarterback to start a playoff game. He's seen, he's watching enough film on the Chargers. He's seen, the Chargers over last year with most of these guys there and what they can do and how to play. And honestly, this is just where, again, I feel like the Patriots have shown that in these type of situations, they are situationally better. They are more experienced in this. Or with the Chargers, this is a, very unique territory for them. Only Phillip Rivers' fifth career postseason victory. And I just trust the Pats here in this game to be able to, control the ball with Burkhead, with White. I think Edelman will have a solid game, and I just trust Tom Brady here at home to pull this victory out. Do I feel like, would I be surprised if the Chargers won? A little bit, because, they don't have the Ravens or the Chiefs aura over the last, few years of going into that stadium and putting up, great fights that they either lost or almost should have lost, in those situations. But I feel like, again, the Patriots, they'll be able to play a bit better. They're more prepared. They'll be more situationally prepared. And I trust Belichick. He won't pull what Nick Saban did on Monday night. I don't think he'll look that bad. And I feel like Anthony Lynn, as great as he's been as a coach, arguably coach of your candidate, I think Belichick wins this one. Just with Brady and just that confidence of the Pats being in the situation, being at home, having the comfort of their West Coast to East Coast again for the Chargers. And Phillip Rivers, to me, will just, he won't be able to make those kind of big plays, or that Charger defense won't look as dominant. I think the Patriots will also do a better job holding up against that Chargers defensive line. So that's like the Patriots to beat the Chargers. And finally, the Saints over the Eagles. This is a game where I know people want to buy into Nick Foles, and congratulations, Nick Foles has now won 4 straight postseason games. He's had 3 postseason, fourth quarter game-winning drives, which is, incredible in that way. But I'm taking the Saints here because I think the Eagles will play as bad as they did in Week 11? No, they got blown out and embarrassed by the Saints every which way. I do think it'll be much more competitive, and Nick Foles has a very low standard to compete against compared to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz in that game went 20 of 32 for 158 yards, no TDs, and he turned the ball over with 3 interceptions. Do I think Nick Foles will play that bad this Sunday? No, I do not. But do I think that he can play just as well with Drew Brees? No, I do not. I think if Drew Brees and Nick Foles both put up good games, Drew Brees having a better game, he'll be able to outplay Nick Foles. The only way the Eagles will win this game is if they get one or two turnovers by the Saints offense in order to give them extra possessions where they can move the ball down the field and do well. Because I don't think Will Lutz is a much better kicker than Parkey. Will Lutz won't have that confidence problem. The only thing I will say to Saints fans that will give them a little concern is there are 2 things. Number one, if you genuinely look at the Saints and the Eagles receiving corps, the Eagles have a much better receiving corps. Top to bottom, you have Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Golden Tate, Jordan Matthews, and Zach Ertz. You have 4 guys deep that can genuinely make plays. With the Saints, you really are Michael Thomas or bust in that receiving corps. Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn is a veteran burner, but besides that, remember, he was throwing to Tommy Lee Lewis, Chris Carr, Dan Arnold, Trayvon Smith, all those guys at receiver, can they make plays against this improved Eagles secondary? And also, can the Eagles defensive line, get pressure on Brees? I think they have played much better. And that Eagle offensive line has played much better than it has in the last few weeks. They've gone up against Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, Ryan Kerrigan, J.J. Watt, and Clowney over the last 6 weeks, and have played their best stretch of football this season. So I do think that is an advantage for the Eagles in that way, in terms of the receiving corps and the fact that their offensive and defensive lines are playing better. But I'm taking the Saints here because I do expect Nick Foles to play a solid game, but if Drew Brees doesn't make mistakes, and if Drew Brees plays his game and they can run the ball effectively, or use Kamara and Ingram effectively both in the ground and air, the Saints should be able to win this game. Drew Brees has never lost a game in that Superdome in the postseason. And I think the Saints are too high-powered, too experienced, or Drew Brees has too much firepower, experience, and confidence in that dome that even if Nick Foles plays another good game, I don't think it'll be enough against Drew Brees unless with turnovers. One last thing, though, I do also want to say to the Saints, be a little concerned about that defense. I know people, I took that Week 17 loss pretty seriously against the Panthers on the Saints defense. They put up 33 points of Kyle Allen. And last time I checked New Orleans, Eli Apple did not sit out that game. Marcus Williams did not sit out that game. A.J. Klein, Cameron Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. All those premier Saint defender starters were playing in that game where Kyle Allen and that offense put up 33 points. It wasn't like Bridgewater in the offense where you could give them a little bit of a pass, where they only could put up 14 points in garbage time because they didn't have Brees and Kamara. But that defense, those guys were out there. All the main guys were there. And they got shredded by the ground and Kyle Allen through the air, who accounted for 3 touchdowns against Kyle Allen, the 4th-string quarterback for the Panthers. So I'm telling Saints fans, be a little concerned about that, because with Nick Foles and his offense, he's a better quarterback than Kyle Allen, and he can move that football just like Allen could, probably even better. Because even though the Saints, they started to clamp down, they still have the 3rd worst passing defense in terms of yards, and they've given up the 10th most touchdowns through the air. So that is the one thing I will tell Saints to be concerned about. But if you can score enough points and get a few stops, that's going to be where I think for Nick Foles, that'll be the difference. 1 or 2 turnovers are needed for Philly to win. I do not think it'll be possible. And even if Nick Foles plays a better game, I do not think he plays as well a game as Drew Brees, and that should be enough to cancel out the Nick Foles magic and get the Saints in their first NFC Championship game since 2009, the last time they won the Super Bowl. And, I'm excited to see if Saints-Rams too, if the Rams can respond and play better, or if the Saints will get to their first Super Bowl since 44. So those are my thoughts and picks and comments this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube prognosticators page for several different people like Bridgewater's Finest, Gio Knows, Keith Bailey, Cody Roy Parker, Half Moon Specs, all those guys and gals that do videos just like I do, making picks and predictions on the NFL season. And until next week for the conference championship games, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until then, so long.